Good morning. I'm so excited this mic works. Thank you for doing this. And then,
I'll stand here and vamp for a second just in case.
oh no, this is going to be an expert plugging in
Hang on.
HDMI.
You ready for this?
All right. So good morning. So like Patch said, I actually used to teach, and I used to teach fine arts, and that's not my computer right now. Let's give it a shot.
Oh, hey!
Oh, it is my computer. It keeps on mirroring my preferences here. So I used to teach fine art, which is a really cool thing to do at 7:45 in the morning, which is when my class was. So I'm actually really excited to be starting off this conference with a bright early morning. I can kind of see everybody there with their coffees kind of sitting there. Everybody here is immediately ready to be creative. It does say mirror, doesn't it? Oh, yeah. I just unmirrored me. Great. The delay on this is nuts. All right, so let's get back to it. This is basically how it really happens and how teachers get pretty good at tech is they have to mess around with the overhead projector, which I've had to use before. So if you ever feel like complaining about tech, let's talk about over projectors. Hi, so my name is Natalya, and I'm going to skip a lot of the introductory stuff since I've now just revealed my true colors as somebody who fumbles around with these AV situations. But so I used to teach fine art, which means paintings, canvases, and things that are basically really relevant to the modern world. So that's why I'm at a tech conference here about to talk to you about technology. It makes total sense. Just wait with me. We're all here to be inspired, to learn something, and to walk away with something that we can bring back to our teams. So I think I'm going to start today with an inspirational quote. You are not creative, you are a technically skilled technician operating a cold mechanical device. Who's heard this before? And nobody has to raise your hands, don't worry. I can't see you anyway. So something that I've learned in the fine art world in my fine art history classes back, I keep saying this because my degree is really worth something, I swear, is that, back when photographers started doing photography and this, amazing new medium was created, they got a lot of criticism from real artists, fine artists, the ones wielding the paintbrush, saying how you're just a technician, you cannot do any kind of art-related things unless they're absolutely made with a brush and canvas, and they said exactly these things to these poor photographers, and they created this false dichotomy of creative, not creative, artist and not artist, and, look at the huge difference between the two of them. It's exactly the same thing that I think I experienced when I finally quit teaching art and went to front-end development full-time. I was told, aren't you going to miss being creative? Aren't you going to, how are you going to give up this amazing fine art painting medium, which is extremely relevant in this modern day and age, and go work on computers? It's like, yeah, that's not quite how it works. We get to work on an infinite canvas capable of any size and shape that glows beautiful colors of all kinds at everybody in the entire world, and they're all looking at it right now. You're probably looking at your screens right now. I see you. It's fine. You can tweet about it. My Twitter is in the corner. So if you create for the web, you are creative. So that's my big pep talk aside here. I just want to establish this. You are creative people. You are creative professionals at a creative conference here, and that's how I'm going to weave this all together. So let's get started. Design's really hard work. Who here has ever done some design or worked with a designer and been like, oh my God, what is happening here? It is deceptively easy, right? Just pick a color, any color. Anybody can just pick a color. We did it all the time in school when we play around with crayons. But it's also really vulnerable because there's no compiler stopping you. There's no error that's like, whoa, these colors really clash and people are going to make fun of you. And every single person is a critic because we all know what looks good, even if we can't say why or how, we just know. So then there's this gap between what we're aware of and what we're capable of. It's terrifying. And then finally, the last and worst and best part of our entire work is the client. You get amazing feedback like, make it pop, which I will tell you how to do that and how to respond to that, so stay tuned. Make it pop, or it's really ugly. I hate green. Pick a better color. And it's just like, oh. It's a lot easier to just kind of retreat into the code, the logical, predictable, and safe code where this is how it works. There are rules. There's a system. And it seems really random and overwhelming in this whole design thing. So I've seen amazing thinkers, amazing developers kind of back away when they're really interested in learning design or really interested in working with color and working with shape and, getting more into the visual stuff. Because we get really discouraged. And anybody who's ever written or spoken about creativity always talks about this one moment where you venture out into the unknown, you do something vulnerable, and you're just shut down really hard. You probably all have a moment, you're all flashing back to, I'm sorry, where somebody said, whatever you drew was ugly, or, wow, is that what you're really gonna wear? Or, maybe let somebody else handle the design, It happens, and it's terrible, and that's a lot of what I really feel like I work to counter. So we're developers. We know one very important thing. We work with information and we work with ideas. Some ideas are made visual, some remain the abstract. We're all shaping ideas and information. And color is just another piece of information that you can learn to wield with intent and with purpose to achieve goals. So that's really what a lot of design is. It's meaningful, it's studied, and it's logical and predictable. Now, I can't fit 4 years of art school into this, but I can tell you a little about colors and how they work. Usually you get a conversation that's like, let's talk about color. It helps you find berries on a green field or predators in a field, and you're sitting there like, I am working on a project right now, and this is completely useless to me. Don't worry, next slide. Okay, modern world, right? Look at this website for an investment banking, just kidding. That's a children's website because it's so bright. We all kind of identify like, yeah, I would not invest my portfolio in this, but I could probably watch some fun videos with Curious George. Color is information, and it says a lot, right? But usually we end up being stuck with words like it's too bright or it pops too much. So let me kind of break it down into two different kinds of color associations. We have the social definition of color, which is like something we all agree on or don't agree on, but can't help it anyway in this as a society. And then there's the colors that are actually like, thanks to the legacy system we all have to work with, our eyeballs and brains. So let's get to it. This is the most exciting slide. Don't worry, I'll let you take a picture. So color is really just light and our perception of the slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. It is studied, logical, and predictable, right? We all have a system that takes this light, interprets it, does a bunch of stuff, and then spits out something great. Well, going way too fast here. So in terms of how we think about it as a society, we have like things like, oh, we associate pink with girls and blue with boys, but that's really just a really pervasive advertising campaign that wanted mothers to buy twice as many things for their babies. But there are also real and studied tangible effects, like if you wear the color red during a contest, you are more likely to win. So, and we don't know why. They're just like, I don't know, maybe it pumps us up. I have no idea. But there are real measured effects. Like color has a real effect on us, both physically, emotionally, mentally. But what I really want to talk about is like, again, back to your website. You have to pick some colors. Somebody put this on you, and you have to do something about it, and it's a very scary thing. Sadly, what you can get in that art school library is a lot more than you can get on the internet. There are a lot of amazing resources that have yet to make the divide. I was actually completely surprised when I made the transition from teaching fine art to working on the web. No one knows how to use a color wheel. It's like the best documentation for the best design pattern I've had in a long time. Or there's just not enough information kind of translated for the medium we're working in. So you can go in and find a lot of resources about like, here, first prime your canvas with some, burnt umber. And it's like, what if I'm working on a computer and I've got my Sublime text open, like what do I do now? We usually just kind of fall back to something like, okay, well I've got a color picker and I'm just gonna pick some colors and just kind of keep picking until something happens, and then you start adding those to the website and then it falls apart and you're like, I guess I'm not creative or I'm not artistic, and that's not what needs to happen. But you've picked all those hex codes, right? You put them in your file in this room. Who can tell me what the relationship between these two colors is? There's always one person in every room who, no. I'm so sorry. But yes, they're complementary colors, obviously. Can you not tell immediately by looking at these? Yeah, so I'm sorry, if you've gotten to the point where you're now reading this and it translates into a visual color, I think we can do better. That's what we're writing software for, is making it easier for people. Because because I don't want to look at that and be like, oh yeah, of course, these are, do you know what, I'm not going to make you say what colors those are. So like, we have to think about color relationships and start writing our colors and designing our design systems as the way we design the rest of our applications, those meaningful systems where you can kind of work and have things interact nicely, not just keep stacking it and hoping things will work. So let's just start with something that I'm very familiar with. If you've ever taken an art class, you have been in a position where you're somewhere in the classroom, you see a color wheel. Who's seen a color wheel in a classroom? Who knows how to read it? Yeah, you know how everyone's like, read the docs, like read the man. Like, what are you trying to do if you're not reading the instructions? So this is the README for how you use color. It's a circle, and if you use the HSL color space, it's nice, 360 degrees that corresponds to a color, and if you mess it up, it'll just keep on going, so you don't even have to go between 0 and 360. And this establishes the color relationship. So complementary colors are across from each other, analogous colors are next to each other, and there's a whole lot of vocabulary words that I can say out loud, but I don't think anyone's had enough coffee yet, and I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. The main cognitive shift that I'd really like you to make, though, is remember that there's a system, there's documentation, and there's a lot of information that creates relationships between things. Sounds a lot like software. So let's get started. I have a demo, so you don't have to keep looking at my doodles here online. So this is a short demo I made. Let me know if you can't see it. That is practical color theory for people who code. And now this is where I'd like to make a disclaimer. This is for people and our eyeballs. So there is a wealth of information both about color spaces on the web, how all this works, and you can just go down this rabbit hole forever and ever and ever. What the intent of this is to break something down very simply. Abstract away my decision tree, decision-making process into a bunch of functions in Sass and reveal how predictable, logical, and completely non-unicorn my decisions are when I decide on a color scheme. So I'm going to walk you through a complementary color scheme that I built, and I'm going to show you how the same functions can work for any color on the color wheel. So let's get started. Anybody have a favorite call to action color? Right now it's on purple. Orange. Okay, wow, do you know why everyone likes red and orange as the call to actions? That's actually a really great one. I really love this. Yeah. So they're actually at the high intensities, which is what we usually see our computers are glowing at us so bright, we actually have to have software to tone it down for us. At high intensities, those are the most visible colors to the human eye, so that's why traffic cones are that orange. That's why safety things are that orange. And that's why if you want someone to look at that button and get started now, it's probably going to be red or orange, because those are very noticeable to our eyeballs. So let's skip the bio. So let's build a complementary color scheme, which means two opposite colors on the color wheel. I've got 10 minutes, and that's almost too much for me, because it is pretty simple once you break it down into the chunks that it works in. So here's the color wheel. And usually you get this kind of, here's my partial for colors in Sass. Red is this, and either use like hex or RGB or HSL, whatever. I'm going to use the HSL here because it's a great way to have a cognitive model of just like what colors are and what the relationships between them are. And it was basically introduced to be more intuitive for people, and that's why I really like it. It's for people. And let's pick a color. We just picked bright orange. Check this out. This is my website right here. If absolutely every element is orange, 100% of the elements on this page are orange, or red, I guess. This projector's showing something interesting. So this is your website. It looks great. So that's our layout. You can tell where home is and the nav menu right here. So suddenly it's like, yeah, color is information. It's pretty important that you differentiate those, right? Let's get started. So let's go for the next one. You don't really have to do much more in this little mini library of mine than pick a color, because the next thing you do is just run a function. Generate the complementary color with complement, which comes complementary with, I did it. So all of a sudden, if you start differentiating and things that are next to other things are different colors, you are now able to tell them apart. Probably. I'll get back to this. So now there's some difference here between them, but that is basically the worst color scheme, and this is about where someone would say, stop and let somebody else do it. We can't sell this. Okay, keep going. This is where a lot of people are starting to do like desaturate or lighten or darken, which, while one of the things you can do, one of the questions I'd like to ask you, how do you desaturate a color in real life? You've got a tube of paint, and someone's like, run the desaturate function on it. What do you do with a paintbrush? So that's opacity if you do paint thinner. You want to actually desaturate a color. Close. You actually add the complementary color. The reason colors are complementary is that, and it's in a circle, and it's a color wheel, not a color line or stick or whatever, is if you mix equal quantities and pigments of the complementary colors together, they'll always end up at a gray. And that's how you get cool gray or warm gray. That's where you kind of make sure things are a little, out of balance with their mixes. So establishing a relationship between colors and kind of simulating similar lighting conditions is really just mixing two colors together. So all I did was mix a little bit of the red into the blue and a little bit of the blue into the red, and I called my function harmonious mix. But really, you can use the mix. Again, comes complementary, the mix function here. And all of a sudden, you can see this colors just toned down a little bit. Now, where do I get this? It's like, have you ever taken a selfie under some fluorescent lights and been like, whoa, everyone's really green, but then like the person who wasn't invited to this party photoshops themselves in, and you're like, that's fake because different lighting conditions. We're actually always looking for similar lighting conditions. We're always trying to understand light because color is our perception of light. And establishing a color relationship, which is again a simplification, but by mixing colors together, you're basically guaranteeing that your brain says, this checks out. This is like in the same environment. Nothing pops out at you. Keep going, carry on. What does this website actually say? So by establishing this color relationship, you're able to do a whole lot more. So all we've done is grab one color, get its complement. Again, you know how things are complementary is if you can't imagine a bluish yellow or a reddish green. So basically things that are opposite each other. Moving on, lots of functions, cool stuff, all on GitHub. You can just take a look. Then you create neutrals. Then you go lighten and darken, right? You're working with a very limited palette. You're not just picking colors at random on a color picker. You're like, I just have to kind of keep going and, extracting more colors. So you can say lighten some, add some white, or you can make a shade by adding some, darken. Those, again, functions already exist. You just have to give them some percentages, and it'll do the work for you. And you can be really loose with these percentages, and your eyeballs will basically say, yeah, that looks about right. I mean, our eyes aren't perfect, and they're not meant to be looking at computers. So you can get some pretty ugly colors, and that's my favorite thing. Pick ugly colors. If you looked at that kid's website that I pulled up earlier, right, how bright and just like, way too much was it? Well, it's because we associate colors with childhood, but why? Why are all the little kids' things that you see for sale so bright? They can't even see beige. They can't appreciate the true beauty of beige because little kids are drawn to, the theory is they're drawn to the most stimulating stimuli, and bright colors bring that. Bright colors are exciting and interesting, and some people say that, the little kids can't even perceive subtle changes in hues. So if you actually look at the contrast between a kid's website and something like retirement living website, that is the beige thing you could ever see. And like the older you get, they're like, that's a really good design, And so pick ugly colors because that's actually the secret for how you make things pop. Make everything else not pop. So I'm going to skip over this real quick and get back to my making things pop, right? All that's saying is you want to have one color be really, really bright and the rest of them toned down. So if somebody says, like, make this pop, just make the rest of the stuff around it not pop. Like a true professional and be like, yeah, done, no problem. I know exactly what you mean by that. Because our eyes are actually not really good at seeing things in high contrast next to each other. I don't know if you've seen, you missed this layout already. Like, doesn't that make you want to kind of throw up a little bit or, get a little weird, dizzy optical illusion? Again, our eyeballs and our brains are pretty legacy systems. They are meant to see like fields with cats on them and berries and bushes, and that's about the cognitive load that we can handle. So the rule of thumb is actually have at least like a third of your view area be some neutral, boring color that would belong on some sort of like beige.com. I don't know if that's a website. Don't go with that. I don't know what that is. Something really, really beige and really toned down. And that way you're able to process the rest of what you see. That's why art galleries have white space and then a giant mat and then a tiny art in the middle so you can fully appreciate it with your eyes. Otherwise, signals bleed into each other and your eyeballs just fuzz out, and then that's how you make people throw up, by looking at your website. And then you think it's your fault, which it is a responsibility you carry. So after you mix your neutrals, what do you do then? You know, pick some colors. You can do whatever you want. Mix a white and a black, add more contrast. A lot of the times people just focus on the hue, but you know, you look at HSO and it's hue, saturation, and lightness. There are so many more things to color than just what degree is it on the color wheel. And what we really are looking for is contrast, right? Differentiating between one thing or another. You can use color to create the illusion of depth by, you know, like blue colors tend to recede and warm colors tend to be perceived as being closer. That's, again, why those buttons keep being orange and red. And, you know, contrast a lot of times, you know, people with low vision, or if you're working with someone with you know, different degrees of color deficiency or color blindness, you really have a responsibility to make sure they can see it. So let's take the colors away entirely. See what's left. That did nothing. Come on, internet. Let's go with my offline mode, which is right here, of course. So we take the colors away entirely. I'm really glad I'm running models over here. And look at how those pop all of a sudden, actually. You know, you really notice those pop. But we desaturated everything. And look at that layout where we just saw Hello World very clearly. We're back to square one. Like, this is the one that was bright orange and bright blue. But if you have issues with seeing color, you're not going to see anything, and you've lost that person, and you're not able to see it. So again, yeah, still some more color relationship. It's only when you start to create contrast, lighten and darken things, that you're able to see things. So honestly, if you're feeling really, really insecure about your ability to mix colors, open up, you know, your browser, get an index and a style sheet, and start messing with contrast. Pick one color and then just go from there. Because, back to colorful stuff. Oh, finally, you did it. Thanks. See how long this takes. Because what you really want to do is change your big picture of how we think about color, right? It's this is just a sample of how I would mix one color scheme, and it's a decision tree, right? I pick a color, then I pick its complement, and then I go through and I start mixing, and from those I can generate a whole color palette, right? I'm never just looking at a color picker and thinking like, maybe this, maybe that, because it's meant to be a system. It's meant to look like it's in the same environment, and that'll stop our primitive brains from being like, what's wrong? It's photoshopped, it's fake, it looks weird. I don't know why the site doesn't look good, but pick another, it's ugly. I want a better one. So, you know, resulting design might look like this. And so if you look on this, it's talus.github.io/color theory. It's going to tweet it. If you look at this, you can mess around with this, and you can see the functions that I actually used. You know, you pick a first color, and the rest of it, you know, I wrote some functions that are definitely going to need some tweaking. But it's I'm trying to think aloud and show you how I think about color and how I decide about color and how your designers think about color and how they're really, really doing a really difficult job trying to please everyone, try to think of all these rules and think about how, you know, to best serve you the content and see the information, and then see how, you know, you can come up with some really cool color schemes right here. So it's all on GitHub, and I'd love to show you how it works. Now, before I go, because I have 30 seconds and I know exactly like when the bell's about to ring and you're finishing your class, you're like, no one's listening more. What I'd really like to do is, again, just spur the cognitive shift that is going to make sure that people are thinking about design as something more than something you're born with. You know, just don't pick colors at random, and realize that you can build your color variables the same way that you architect the rest of your application. You don't have to reinvent the wheel each time and start picking colors at random. You've got a color wheel, you've got these amazing tools and these functions, and you can have something where if you decide to change your color in one place, the rest of your website can inherit all of those changes and stay relative to each other, like in an accessible website, something that everybody can see and experience, and not be left out because, you know, somebody didn't do their color well. So that's it. 10 seconds to go. Just kidding, I'm way over. if you have any questions, I would actually love to speak to you about all this stuff, because again, I'm trying to make this something that people can use and everybody can feel encouraged and inspired to do. This isn't something random and you have to start when you're 5 years old. Anybody can pick this up now if they're interested, and there are a lot of resources out there, and it's really, really fun. So thank you so much.